Before we get on with the podcast, I wanted to let everyone know that I have 3 books available for sale on Kindle. Recommended Reading for the True Conservative, Bad Democrat, and Evil Liberal. All of them available for $3.99. And now, on with the podcast.
As a comedian, I've got a responsibility that I take very seriously. The responsibility to get up in front of a group of strangers and give you my opinion on the trans community. Look, guys, you've got to do it now. It's in the handbook. Now, I feel like the trans community are the new pregnant women. Just in that it is never polite to guess. Guys, you gotta trust me on this. You never want to be like, hey, how far along are you? Are you gonna keep it or... No, don't do that. Even if you're right, it's rude. Do what I do. I'm smooth with it. I don't ask the question. If I want to find something out, I just offer you a drink. Here, have this glass of bourbon. And if they say, actually, Anthony, I'm 7 months pregnant, then I get to be like, oh my God, you look amazing. I know. if they take the drink, they're trans?
Good morning. It's Saturday, Rules Saturday, August the 22nd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have no free lunch, rules for retrogrades, and the Mossad. All that and more when I get back. God, give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Thank you. And now there's no free lunch. 250 Economic Truths by David Bahnsen.
The argument for liberty is not an argument against organization, which is one of the most powerful tools human reason can employ, but an argument against all exclusive, privileged, monopolistic organization, against the use of coercion to prevent others from doing better. F.A. Hayek. The straw man argument most often used against those of us who oppose top-down command control management of society is that we favor chaos and disorder. Quite the contrary. History has taught us, validated by all we know about human nature, that the results of statist social organization is chaotic tyranny at worst and coercive cronyism at best. On the contrary, the fruits of social organization, rooted in reason and voluntary cooperation, have been unprecedented peace and prosperity.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, rules for retrogrades.
Rule 8. It is a damnable lie that humility disallows Christians from standing up for what they believe in the cultural and political forum. The requirements of Christian piety do not include the forfeiture of hallowed ground to the Jacobins. On the contrary, humility and piety require the God-fearing defense of culture. One humbly submits oneself to the crusade. In reality, humility explicates a certain disposition, not a certain act. As Aristotle wrote of all virtue, prudence, not humility, governs the Christian exigencies of forming real-time, daily rejoinders to the radical enemies of culture and civil order. If anything, true humility empowers retrogrades to fight evil in their midst. In other words, we are allowed, and in many cases even obligated, to fight back if necessary in word and in deed. Many cowardly Christian men on the right wing have made, from their quietude, a comfortable, unchallenged life for themselves. Through a cleverly perverted sense of Christian humility, such men have unabashedly popularized their habitual submission to radicals. They even presume to lecture American retrogrades about the virtues of their own complacent acts of pusillanimity. We must suffer the slings and arrows of this world in stoicism, they say, as they profit in peace, dodging any real suffering while the rest of us fight. What they're really avoiding is the suffering itself. To be sure, such phony conservatives have acquitted themselves very poorly in the defense of Western civilization because they don't care much for it except in what it can do for them. And this attitude reflects the opposite of humility. This attitude is really self-service and cowardice, dressed up in the moral garb of bourgeois Christianity, fake Christianity. This rationalization has grown in popularity to the extent that many earnest retrogrades ask, is resisting evil with good evil? Of course not. We respond to those who have characterized metaphorical draft dodging as brave humility with Isaiah 5:20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Also recall the sage advice of St. Jerome. Nothing is more to be feared than too long a peace. You are deceived if you think that a Christian can live without persecution. He suffers the greatest persecution of all, who lives under none. A storm puts a man on his guard and obliges him to exert his utmost efforts to avoid shipwreck. Note Jerome's spiked words of alarm, which fustily enjoin the Christian to put up his guard and to spend his utmost efforts on the fight. St. Jerome invokes neither pacifism nor passivism. Finally recalls St. Augustine's admonition, hope has two beautiful daughters. Their names are anger and courage. Anger at the way things are, and courage to see that they do not remain as they are. In actuality, the phony conservatives who mischaracterize cowardice as humility frequently number among the militant mods who would speak out more loudly against retrogrades than radicals. The pious, affected quietude of these Judases is frequently pierced by their own traitorous voices in order to distance themselves from retrogrades. Indeed, the radical imbalance currently plaguing the West has benefited more parties than just the radicals themselves. It works to the benefit of the silent, copacetic Christians who profit from their own non-interference in radical machinations. And this is an ugly fact in the grand scheme of things. In short, pacifism is not humility. Humility constitutes one's attitude at the end of the day, when one hits one's knees in prayer or when the head hits the pillow. But it does not require a retrograde to submit to evil. As Thomas Aquinas points out, humility renders the spirit strong, not weak. Lastly, Saint Jose Maria Escrivá wrote, "Unless you mortify yourself, you'll never become a prayerful soul." For gentle-fibered men who would rather be silent than fight, the best means of self-mortification may just be to enter the fray.
And that was Rule 8 from Rules for Retrogrades, 40 Tactics to Defeat the Radical Left by Timothy J. and David R. Gordon. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now the Mossad.
Istanbul, August 2005. At lunchtime inside the Grand Bazaar, Pandeli restaurant is packed. Tourists, locals, waiters moving shoulder to shoulder. Among them sits Samir Abu Hilal, a man Turkish intelligence considers harmless. He orders lamb stew, a waiter sets the bowl down. But what Abu Hilal doesn't know, and what no one in the room will ever suspect, is that death has already been served. The toxin is odorless, the dose microscopic. The clock already started. 12 minutes later, he will collapse behind a locked bathroom door, and an international intelligence service will walk away clean. This is Operation Silent Dish. Samir Abu Hilal was not a commander, not a bomb maker, not a public face of Hamas. That was precisely why he mattered. Born in the West Bank in 1952, he witnessed the aftermath of the Six-Day War as a teenager. Israeli occupation replacing Jordanian administration, families displaced, resentment calcifying into something harder. By age 22, Abu Hilal had discovered his calling wasn't in violence, but in something more durable: finance. He understood that wars are funded before they are fought. While others threw stones or built bombs, Abu Hilal studied European banking regulations. He learned how charitable donations could be redirected, how Islamic finance systems operated outside Western oversight, how money could flow through mosques and NGOs without triggering alarms. By the early 1990s, he had embedded himself in Europe's Palestinian diaspora networks, Brussels, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, speaking at fundraisers, coordinating humanitarian aid, and beneath that surface, moving cash to Hamas operations in Gaza and the West Bank. Associates described him as meticulous, never flashy. He drove a modest Renault. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Brussels. He avoided rhetoric, preferring spreadsheets to speeches. This made him extraordinarily effective. Western intelligence agencies struggled to build cases against humanitarian workers who never touched weapons, never appeared in surveillance photos with known militants, never said anything incriminating on intercepted calls. Abu Hilal's genius was staying beneath legal thresholds while moving millions. By 2003, Israeli intelligence assessed Abu Hilal as the chief European financial conduit for Sheikh Ahmed Yassin's Hamas leadership. Signals intelligence confirmed he coordinated transfers totaling an estimated $8 to $12 million annually. These funds purchased explosives, weapons, and operational support for attacks during the Second Intifada. Yet, he had never been arrested. European authorities found his activities distasteful, but not provably illegal. He traveled on a Belgian passport. He ate in public restaurants. He believed that geography, operating from NATO territory, far from Israeli reach, was insulation. That belief would become the vulnerability. Intelligence services had tracked Abu Hilal for 7 years. Surveillance teams documented his movements across European capitals. Financial analysts mapped his networks. But observation wasn't disruption. The Second Intifada had killed over 1,000 Israelis between 2000 and 2005. Every suicide bombing, every cafe explosion, every bus attack required funding. And those funds flowed through men like Abu Hilal. By March 2005, Israeli intelligence concluded Abu Hilal represented what analysts called a critical node. Remove him, and financial flows would fracture. But removal presented severe obstacles. Arrest was impossible. He operated outside Israeli jurisdiction. Diplomatic pressure had failed. European governments wouldn't act on intelligence they couldn't independently verify. A public assassination would destroy relations with Turkey, a crucial NATO ally. Traditional methods had reached their limit. The trigger came in mid-2005. Signals intelligence intercepted communications, indicating a pending multi-million-dollar transfer tied to attacks already in planning stages. The authorization shifted from monitoring to execution. The operation would be assigned to Unit K7, a specialized cell within Israeli intelligence that handled what internal documents called non-attributable disruption operations. Israeli intelligence called this the silent removal strategy. The logic was straightforward. Eliminate the target in a manner indistinguishable from natural causes or accident, avoiding diplomatic blowback while achieving strategic effect. The doctrine emerged after 2002, when high-profile assassinations in Europe and the Middle East generated international condemnation and strengthened Hamas recruitment. Quieter methods served multiple purposes. The target was eliminated, operations were disrupted, and Israel maintained plausible deniability. Abu Hilal's pattern analysis revealed one consistent vulnerability. Despite his operational security regarding communications and meetings, he maintained predictable personal habits. He traveled to Istanbul every 6 to 8 weeks, staying at the same hotel near Sultanahmet, eating at the same restaurants. Turkish intelligence monitored him, but considered him a low priority. A fundraiser, not a fighter. This created an operational window. The obstacles were severe. Istanbul operated dense counterintelligence networks. Any suspicious activity near a known Hamas affiliate would trigger surveillance. Abu Hilal carried no weapons, attended no meetings with militants during his Istanbul visits, and never stayed longer than 72 hours. The margin for error was non-existent. A public hit would represent a catastrophic diplomatic breach against a NATO ally. The operation required zero forensic signature. Despite these challenges, planners identified an opportunity. Abu Hilal's Istanbul routine included lunch at Pandeli restaurant, located inside the Grand Bazaar. He ate there alone, ordered the same dish, and followed the same timing. The restaurant's layout included a restroom, corridor without security cameras in 2005. The crowds provided cover. The location's chaos provided noise. Within 4 months, all elements would be in position. But first, the delivery method needed to be perfected. During the planning phase, an operative later identified only as Agent 17 experienced what handlers call legend drift. The psychological blurring when false identity feels more real than the original. Agent 17 had entered Turkey 3 months before execution, posing as a hospitality consultant for international hotel chains. The cover required attending actual business meetings, producing legitimate reports, building a verifiable professional network. By July 2005, Agent 17 had been invited to a colleague's family dinner in Beyoğlu. Sitting at that table, sharing food, laughing at jokes told in Turkish, the agent experienced a moment of profound dissonance. Which identity was real? In the post-operation psychological assessment, agency evaluators noted persistent disassociation and recommended a 6-month operational stand-down. But the mission continued. Intercepted communications from June 2005 reveal Abu Hilal discussing his daughter's upcoming wedding in Brussels. Analysts noted nothing operationally relevant. The conversation focused on venue selection, guest lists, and his hope that she would be happy. When the operation concluded, intelligence monitored the funeral instead. The daughter collapsed during the eulogy. For those who planned silent dish, this was collateral consequence, unintended but accepted within the operational calculus. By August 3, 2005, the operation entered its execution phase. Signals intelligence confirmed Abu Hilal had booked his regular flight to Istanbul, arriving August 5th. Pattern analysis predicted he would visit Pandeli restaurant on August 6th or 7th, depending on his schedule. The window was 72 hours. Final authorization came from a senior official whose identity remains classified, but who, according to internal documentation, appended a single instruction to the operational directive. No signature. The infrastructure required for Silent Dish was built across 4 months, constructed to leave no traceable connection between elements. Cover identities were manufactured through a process Israeli intelligence called layering. Documents verified through legitimate labor brokers, employment histories confirmed through real companies, financial trails that withstood scrutiny. Agent 17's hospitality consultant identity included a verifiable employment contract with an Istanbul-based firm, tax records, and 3 months of hotel inspection reports submitted to actual clients. A second operative, designated Agent 23, entered Turkey posing as a logistics coordinator for restaurant supply chains. This identity provided access to commercial kitchens across Istanbul without triggering suspicion. The documentation included contracts with 5 legitimate vendors, delivery schedules, and a work visa processed through standard Turkish bureaucratic channels. Every element was real, except the person behind it. Communication systems relied on what intelligence professionals call sterile protocols. No electronic transmissions occurred between operatives. Dead drops were positioned in 3 locations across Istanbul: a newspaper kiosk near Taksim Square, a bookstore in Kadıköy, and a cafe restroom in Sultanahmet. Messages were written on water-soluble paper using erasable ink, photographed, then destroyed. The photographs were stored on SD cards smaller than a fingernail, inserted into innocuous items like ballpoint pens or cosmetic cases, and passed through the dead drop network. If intercepted, the cards would appear blank without specific chemical treatment to reveal the images. The toxin itself, internally designated Compound R2, was synthetic, designed in a laboratory rather than extracted from natural sources, was selected for 3 critical properties: rapid onset time of 8 to 15 minutes, symptom profile mimicking acute foodborne illness, and molecular breakdown that prevented post-mortem detection using standard autopsy procedures available in Turkish medical facilities in 2005. The compound was derived from a modified batrachotoxin variant, calibrated to cause cardiac arrhythmia and respiratory collapse without the convulsive symptoms that would attract immediate attention. Dosage was measured in micrograms. The pellets, smaller than pinheads, dissolved instantly when exposed to temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. Escape routes were mapped with 3-tier redundancy. Primary exfiltration used commercial ferry services across the Bosphorus, blending operatives into tourist traffic moving between European and Asian Istanbul. Secondary routes involved pre-positioned rental vehicles in parking structures near Eminonu and Karakoi, with GPS devices removed to prevent tracking. Tertiary extraction, reserved for catastrophic compromise, included a speedboat moored at a private dock in Bebek and a safe house 40 kilometers outside Istanbul, stocked with false documentation, currency in 4 denominations, and supplies for a 2-week undetected stay. The team structure followed strict compartmentalization. Surveillance specialists tracked Abu Hilal's movements, but never interacted with execution operatives. The execution team knew the target's identity and location, but not the strategic rationale. Support personnel who arranged safe houses and transportation never learned the operation's objective. Each operative knew only their specific function to prevent catastrophic intelligence loss if any single element was compromised by Turkish counterintelligence. The planning consumed 119 days. By July 28, 2005, all cover identities were established, communication protocols tested, and the compound synthesized and transported into Turkey through a diplomatic pouch routed via a cooperating European intelligence service. Agent 17 had 48 hours before the execution window opened. August 5th, 2005. At 14:37 hours, Abu Hilal's flight from Brussels landed at Ataturk International Airport. Surveillance teams confirmed his arrival and tracked him to the Armada Hotel in Sultanahmet, his consistent accommodation. He checked in alone, carrying 1 suitcase and a leather briefcase. Turkish intelligence maintained passive monitoring, phone taps on his hotel room, periodic visual surveillance, but made no active moves. To them, Abu Hilal represented a known quantity, a fundraiser worthy of observation but not intensive resources. Over the next 22 hours, Abu Hilal followed his established pattern. He met with 2 individuals at a cafe near the Blue Mosque, identified through long-range photography as local Palestinian community organizers. The meeting lasted 41 minutes. No documents were exchanged. Surveillance audio captured discussion of community events and charitable fundraising, nothing operationally significant. He returned to his hotel at 1800 hours, ordered room service, and remained inside until morning. August 6, 2005, unfolded with meteorological precision. Abu Hilal departed his hotel at 11:42 hours. He walked northwest through Sultanahmet, past the Hagia Sophia, entering the Grand Bazaar through the Nuru Osmaniye Gate at 12:07 hours. Surveillance teams maintained visual contact through 3 rotations, ensuring no single observer appeared in his sightline multiple times. The bazaar's density, an estimated 70,000 daily visitors during peak season, provided natural cover. At 12:53 hours, Abu Hilal approached Pandeli restaurant, located on the 2nd floor above the bazaar's main entrance. The restaurant, operational since 1901, was renowned for lamb dishes and Ottoman cuisine. Its interior featured blue Iznik tiles, high ceilings, and wooden tables packed shoulder to shoulder during lunch service. August 6th was a Saturday. The restaurant was at full capacity, estimated 120 diners, 18 staff members. What Abu Hilal didn't know was that 23 meters behind him, Agent 23 had entered the restaurant's service entrance at 12:48 hours, wearing the white jacket and black trousers of kitchen support staff. The uniform was identical to those worn by Pandeli's regular employees. The identification badge clipped to the collar was a perfect replica, produced using stolen templates and lamination equipment matching the restaurant's supplier specifications. By 1300 hours, the restaurant's kitchen operated at maximum throughput. 12 cooks worked 4 stations. Waiters moved and practiced choreography between dining room and service window. Agent 23 integrated into the flow, carrying plates, refilling water pitchers, performing tasks indistinguishable from legitimate staff. 3 staff members would later report noticing an unfamiliar face, but assumed he was part of a recent hiring wave. In the chaos of Saturday lunch service, individual questioning seemed inappropriate. Abu Hilal was seated at table 17, a 2-person station near the western wall. He ordered in Turkish, functional but accented. The waiter noted the order: kuzu güveç, lamb stew slow-cooked with tomatoes, onions, and peppers. The dish required 20 minutes preparation time. Abu Hilal ordered tea while waiting. He appeared relaxed, occasionally glancing at a newspaper folded beside his plate. 1309 hours. In a safe house 900 meters from Pandeli restaurant, Agent 17 prepared the final element. The lamb stew had been prepared off-site in a rented kitchen space using ingredients purchased from the same suppliers that served Pandeli. The recipe was reverse-engineered from multiple visits by support operatives over the previous month. The dish was identical in appearance, aroma, and composition to what Pandeli's kitchen would produce, with one microscopic difference. 4 pellets of compound R2 were placed into the stew using surgical tweezers. Each pellet measured 0.7 millimeters in diameter. The compound's encapsulation dissolved at temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. The stew was maintained at 73 degrees. Within 90 seconds of placement, the pellets had completely dissolved, leaving no visible trace. The toxin was odorless, tasteless, and molecularly designed to avoid detection in blood panels standard to Turkish medical facilities. The stew was transferred to a thermal container, identical to those used by restaurant delivery services. Agent 17 transported it via motorcycle to a position 300 meters from Pandeli's service entrance, arriving at 1311 hours. Agent 23 received the container through a pre-coordinated dead drop in an alley adjacent to the bazaar, carried it through the service entrance, and positioned it on a prep counter during a moment when the kitchen supervisor was occupied resolving a plating error at Station 2. 1314 hours. Abu Hilal's legitimate order emerged from Pandeli's kitchen. A waiter named Mehmet collected the plate and began navigating toward table 17. This represented the operation's critical vulnerability. If Mehmet delivered the legitimate stew, the entire operation would collapse. Agent 23 intercepted him 3 meters from the service window. The exchange lasted 4 seconds. Agent 23 carried the thermal container's contents, plated identically to kitchen output. He approached Mehmet with practiced nonchalance, stating in Turkish that the kitchen had remade the order due to incorrect seasoning, and he would deliver the corrected version. Mehmet hesitated. The original plate appeared. "Yeah, fine." Agent 23 gestured toward the kitchen supervisor, implying the decision came from management. Mehmet, mid-shift and juggling 4 tables, accepted the explanation and returned the original plate. Agent 23 walked to table 17. He placed the bowl before Abu Hilal at 1315 hours. He asked in Turkish if additional bread was needed. Abu Hilal declined. Agent 23 withdrew, moving back toward the kitchen with the same practiced efficiency he displayed throughout service. Within 20 seconds, he had stripped the staff jacket, exited through the service door, and vanished into the bazaar's crowds, wearing a blue button-down shirt that had been underneath. 1316 hours. First bite. Abu Hilal lifted his spoon. The stew's temperature was optimal. The flavor profile matched his expectations from previous visits. He ate without hesitation. No reaction registered in his expression. Surveillance teams positioned in the dining room noted nothing unusual. 1317 hours. Second bite. A slight pause. Abu Hilal reached for his tea, drank, then resumed eating. Observers would later debate whether this indicated initial symptom onset or ordinary dining behavior. The compound's mechanism targeted voltage-gated sodium channels in cardiac and neural tissue, causing progressive depolarization that would manifest first as mild disorientation, then as acute cardiovascular distress. 18 hours. Third bite. Abu Hilal set down his spoon. He placed both hands flat on the table, a gesture observers interpreted as steadying himself. He looked toward the restroom corridor. 5 seconds passed. He stood, offered a brief apology in Turkish to nearby diners for disturbing them, and walked with deliberate steps toward the restroom. The toxin's design exploited a specific vulnerability in human biology: the delay between cardiac electrical disruption and systemic collapse. Compound R2 was calibrated to produce initial symptoms that mimicked nausea or digestive discomfort, prompting the subject to seek privacy before catastrophic failure occurred. This prevented public collapse that would trigger immediate medical intervention and forensic scrutiny. 23 hours. Abu Hilal entered the men's restroom, a 6-meter-long corridor containing 2 stalls and 3 sinks. The facility had no security cameras, a detail confirmed through 17 days of pattern analysis. He locked himself in the far stall. What occurred in the next 5 minutes is reconstructed from medical pathology and operational parameters. The compound induced progressive arrhythmia, ventricular fibrillation that prevented effective cardiac output. Simultaneously, neural disruption caused respiratory muscle paralysis. Abu Hilal would have experienced intense chest pressure, difficulty breathing, and rapid loss of motor control. The process was clinically efficient, but biologically catastrophic. 26 hours. A restaurant patron entered the restroom. He noted the occupied stall, but observed nothing unusual. He washed his hands and departed. This represented the final moment Abu Hilal was confirmed alive by independent witness. 28 hours. Silence from the stall prompted no immediate concern. The lunch rush continued. Waiters cleared tables. New patrons were seated. The restaurant operated within normal parameters. 41 hours. A waiter attempting to use the restroom found the stall door locked with no response to knocking. He reported this to management. The assistant manager knocked more forcefully, calling out in Turkish. No response. He retrieved a key and unlocked the door from outside. Abu Hilal had collapsed against the stall wall. He was unresponsive. His skin showed cyanosis, blue-gray discoloration indicating oxygen deprivation. No pulse was detectable. The manager immediately called emergency services while staff attempted CPR. 47 hours. An ambulance arrived at the Grand Bazaar's northern entrance. Paramedics navigated through the bazaar to Pandeli. They assessed Abu Hilal and declared no viable signs of life. Standard protocol required transport to a hospital for formal death certification. The body was removed at 14:04 hours. While emergency personnel worked, Agent 17 was already crossing the Bosphorus on a ferry departing from Eminonu. Agent 23 had boarded a bus to Ankara, carrying falsified business documentation indicating a scheduled meeting with hotel suppliers. Support operatives dissolved into separate exit vectors. One via rental car to the Bulgarian border, another via commercial flight to Athens, a third remaining in Istanbul for 72 hours before departing on a tourist visa to Rome. No chase occurred. No alarms were raised. Turkish authorities processed the scene as a medical emergency. The restaurant underwent inspection. Pandeli's kitchen supervisor was questioned about food preparation. Health inspectors examined refrigeration units, finding expired lamb stored below proper temperature. This became the official preliminary conclusion. The body was released to Turkish authorities at 16:30 hours. An autopsy was scheduled, but not prioritized. The death appeared consistent with acute food poisoning or cardiac event in a middle-aged man with no suspicious circumstances. Blood toxicology used standard panels screening for common poisons, heavy metals, and controlled substances. Compound R2 was designed to avoid detection by these protocols. Its molecular structure degraded within hours of death, fragmenting into components indistinguishable from naturally occurring metabolic byproducts. By 1400 hours on August 6th, every operative was already moving through separate exits, blending into ferry traffic, taxis, and crowds. The operation ended where it began, over lunch in plain sight, with no evidence linking cause to actor. By August 7th, 2005, Turkish media reported an unfortunate incident at a historic Istanbul restaurant. Pandeli underwent brief inspection and temporary closure. Health officials cited improper meat storage as the probable cause of death. The case generated minimal coverage, a tragic but unremarkable food safety failure. The restaurant reopened after 72 hours with enhanced refrigeration protocols. Abu Hilal's body was returned to his family in Brussels for burial. The official cause of death remained acute gastrointestinal distress, leading to cardiac arrest. Turkish intelligence reviewed the incident with more skepticism. Officers familiar with Abu Hilal's profile found the timing suspicious. A Hamas financier dies suddenly in Istanbul during a routine visit with no prior health complaints. Requests were made to Israeli counterparts for any relevant intelligence. The responses were carefully crafted, non-answers. No direct denial, no confirmation. Simply statements that Israel maintained no operations in Turkish territory and valued the bilateral relationship. Privately, intelligence services exchanged messages that functioned as acknowledgments without evidence. A senior Turkish intelligence official would later describe the communication as everyone understanding what happened while no one being able to prove it. This created a paradox: operational success coupled with strategic erosion. Israel had eliminated a target. Turkey had been violated. The relationship absorbed the damage because explicit confrontation would require evidence neither side wanted exposed. Within 6 months, financial flows linked to Abu Hilal fractured measurably. European banking networks he had cultivated lost coordination. Transfers that previously moved smoothly through his systems encountered disruptions. Accounts frozen, intermediaries investigated, replacement operatives lacking his institutional knowledge and relationships. Intelligence analysts tracking Hamas financing documented an estimated 40% reduction in European funding flows during the 18 months following his death. 2 planned operations were quietly abandoned when financing collapsed. One involved a coordinated bombing campaign in Tel Aviv. The other targeted civilian infrastructure in Jerusalem. Both required upfront capital that no longer materialized. The operations were postponed, then canceled as planners were reassigned. No public announcement was made. The attacks simply never occurred. Strategic costs emerged more gradually. Israeli-Turkish intelligence cooperation, which had operated at high levels through the 1990s and early 2000s, began cooling. Information sharing became selective. Joint operations were delayed pending additional oversight. Turkish officials imposed new restrictions on Israeli diplomatic movement within Turkey. None of these measures were explicitly linked to Abu Hilal's death. Officially, they represented routine policy adjustments. The silent line that had been crossed remained unacknowledged, but clearly felt. The operation became a template within intelligence communities, not copied directly, but studied intensively. It reinforced doctrinal shifts toward what analysts called non-kinetic elimination, achieving permanent disruption through methods indistinguishable from accident or natural causes.
And that was the Mossad. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that no one is neutral and that the government has no rights.